And Gita Dhyanam literally means meditation on the Gita. So that's what this is. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters from within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna. Arjuna is the calf, and people of purified intellect are the drinkers. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent, and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat. So we're at a place in the Gita. This 17th chapter is called the Yoga of the Threefold Faith. There's a concept that we probably have entertained, which is that some people have faith and some people don't have faith, like this. But actually, everyone has faith according to their own nature. So some of us are very much caught up in darkness, and so our faith would be according to this. Some are caught up very much in activity and doership and getting things done and getting our rewards for it and getting our piece of the pie and all of this, and there's a faith there as well. And then there's a faith which is a faith existent and placed in that which is higher than us, that which is inside us and outside of us as well, that which is higher than us. And so we say according to our nature, and this has been the discussion, the nature of nature, three basic aspects of nature, which are tamas, rajas, and sattva. In English, lethargy, dullness or darkness. So when we meet people who are primarily caught up in this, in a dark place, right? Depression or darkness, belief in demonic powers and like this. And then rajas is passion. So doership, doing things for ourselves, getting things for ourselves, etc. And I suppose we meet a lot of people that are very much caught up in this, and we ourselves have experienced both of these, and both of these powers both of these natures are within us as well. They're in a rotation. The first one actually is sleep also. And then the third, sattva, which is purity or clarity. Clarity is the best way perhaps to relate to it, because clarity also means clarity of mind, clear mind. Ability to recognize what's important, what's not important. And then where we are now is a discussion of austerities according to these natures. How is it that one controls oneself? For what purpose? In order to do anything here, you have to have some control over yourself. And if you don't, and we have this experience too, because if we don't have any control over ourselves, the mind just continually wanders. It just constantly goes from place to place to place to place. There are countless sense objects here, and it will go from one to another, to another, to another, seemingly on its own. And we all have this experience, by the way, where it does. And then, but in that state, we literally don't complete anything. What does that look like? Well, we sign up for school and one semester we take this, but by the end of it, the mind's gone somewhere else, and now we take something else the next semester. And as I say, we probably have experience with this, but also at some point you say, come on, I have to focus on something. And to make yourself focus requires austerity. It's just another way to address topic of austerity, you see. To make yourself focus and accomplish something, you have to practice austerity. You have to control yourself. And what that really means is you have to control the mental tendencies. You have to focus on something. You have to pick something. And so, as human beings, the human experience, and you're not really a human being, but you're definitely having a human experience. The human experience is defined by, in Sanskrit, Icha, Jnana, Kriya. Icha is will, or you could say feeling. Jnana is thought, and Kriya is action. So in this human experience, we feel incomplete, in need of something. We ruminate over what it is that we need based upon our own tendencies. I need a woman, I need a man in my life, I need a different woman or a different man in my life, or this is the rumination, the thinking. And then we act. That's actually Kriya, or karma. In order to what? In order to get it, whatever it is. And so these three are forming the cycle of what we call life in this world, where based upon the feeling or based upon what it is that we will, then the thought about it and the thought of how to attain it, and then the action. So if one is going to practice austerity, if one is going to control oneself, then the control is needing to be of this. We express in three ways as well. We express through our thought, through our words, and through our actions. The thoughts and the words are very closely related. But the question is asked about what kind of austerity to practice. And the question would be in thought, what to think, what to entertain, in word, what to speak, and in action, what to do. The Buddha addresses this, in the Eightfold Path. It's addressed in Raja Yoga. It's addressed in all of the spiritual traditions. And so Lord Krishna has just talked about sattvic austerity. So the one who has sattvic faith, what do they do? How do they act, in other words? What do they say? And what do they think? And we'll recap those very quickly. And also these are practices. If one says, and this is the perspective from which we looked at it yesterday morning. If one says, if I wish to have a beneficial life, if I wish to live in a way that's beneficial for me and for others, for all that I touch, what would I do? What would I say? And what would I think? Does that make sense? The question? So here's how Lord Krishna answers that. And then from this place, we'll move on a little bit this morning and talk about some of what follows. This is a very big one. In the teachings of the Gita, this is seminal. It's the center, really, of the yoga science, of the science of yoga. So, first, action. What to do for the one who is of sattvic temperament or sattvic faith. Worship of God, the twice-born, meaning the saints, the teachers and the wise, purity, straightforwardness, self-control, celibacy, and non-injury are called the austerities of the body. So this is what's prescribed as the way to act. And then speech. Speech which causes no excitement, we had a good discussion about that point yesterday morning, which is truthful, pleasant, and beneficial. The practice of the study of the Vedas, practice of the study of higher teachings, are called austerity of speech. We talk too much. And it seems like all of our problems come about through our talking too much, through something that we say. We get all wrapped up and we say something. We all have this experience, don't we? We say something, someone hears it a certain way, and that relationship's over. Yes? And we all had that experience, and it's never the same. It said that we all have a sword in the tongue. We all have a sword in the tongue, and we have the ability to cut so very deeply just in a word, just in a careless word. Yes? Yeah. And so, if we really know that, we would say nothing. Generally speaking, we say in order to please ourselves anyway. Generally speaking, we speak in order to please ourselves, in order to get some pleasure, in order to get something. And generally speaking, we do in order to gain, we speak in order to gain, and we think as a measure to plot, as a way to plot how to gain. That's very much the self-centered mode of life. But when one wants to come out of that and live a higher life, then we have to learn to live a beneficial life. A life that's beneficial for all, because we're all related to each other. Ultimately, we're all one. But we're all in the same stew, and we're sharing the same stuff. We share everything together. We share the thoughts and the actions together. We share the foodstuffs. We share all of this. We share the same blood, the same heartbeat, the same intelligence. We share the same 5 elements. We share the same prana, the same energy. We share everything together. And everything that we do comes back to us. The golden rule is in action here. Whatever we do comes back. And so, and what we discover, of course, is when we lead a greedy, self-centered life, that we first and foremost hurt ourselves, but also hurt everyone around us as well. I'm very grateful for the moment where I saw that, where I was able to begin to see that. And that's what supported the transformation, the beginning of, I can't live like this anymore. I just hurt everyone. Right? And then discovering the power of thought and recognizing how much I was harming even in thought, not just action, not just speech. And so speech is one that we can really pick up on, though, because we all have this experience with just a word, right? And then we'll say, well, I just said, I didn't mean, yes? But it's done, isn't it? And it's already done. And then you offer roses or whatever, but it's done already.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I started to speak less and less.
Yes.
And then I didn't even know it was a yogic practice back then, but it's beneficial.
Yeah, but you were guided to it. You saw it.
Yeah.
You saw the need for it. Yeah. So with speech, then the question is, well, then what should I say? And the answer will be only that which is beneficial, and never any more than that. There's intuitive guidance on it, which will finally lead us out. But this very direct guidance is very helpful, which is speech which causes no excitement. Don't speak in a way that gets people excited. We were talking about, and if you speak in a way to get someone to get up and get going or motivate them to get going because they're stuck in a rut, they're in a depression, etc. How to apply this is you might get a little excitement, which is just, it will be really good for you to get up and be in the sun. It'll be really good for you to be in nature today. Here, come with me, dear. Let's go take a walk in the forest. Let's go be in the sun together for a while, like this. It's not really exciting, but it's something that's encouraging, yes? That's truthful, that's pleasant and beneficial. So not unpleasant is a way to relate to. And then what else to use the speech for? To study the highest teachings. When we finally realize, my God, this life I've been living, it's not so beneficial, then we'll naturally have the question, we pray that we'll naturally have the question, well then what would be beneficial? Right? And this is part of what's shared is study Bhagavad Gita, study the Vedas, study the Bible, study the Quran, whatever tradition resonates with us. Use speech for that. Not to preach it, but to study it. Speech is required there as well. And then the last is thoughts. Serenity of mind or sweetness of mind, good-heartedness, self-control, purity of nature. This is called mental austerity. And of course, that's the root of all action, is the thought. All action starts from the thought. We were talking about a situation yesterday evening, Raj. And in that situation, you had to act. You had to speak and you had to take some action. And that speech and that action are starting from thought. How it is that you're relating to the person and the situation and all of that in the inner world, right? So when she says something, how do you hear it? And how do you ruminate about it? How do you think about it? How do you relate to it? Yes? And there's so many different ways to relate to it. And this is all thought. This is all thought. So she could be suffering from a mental disorder. That's one way to relate to it. She could be a terrible person. That's another way to relate to it. She could be a robber, potential robber. That's another way to relate to it. Yes? You see? She could be a form of God, and that's a way to relate to it. She could be a test, and that's a way to relate to it. And so here, Lord Krishna starts at actions first, and then coming to words, because it's so easy for us to miss our thoughts. And what are our thoughts? We take the way we relate to things that happen as truth. Yes? And then we get into a discussion with someone and we say, well, it's my truth. If we have to defend it, it's my truth. But of course, it's not any of those. It's just my thoughts about the matter, which are actually expressions of a particular nature. So rajasic thought pattern, then somebody does something, they say something in anger, then with a rajasic thought pattern, anger will arise within you, within your own mind. With a sattvic thought pattern, then care will arise and thoughts about how to ease this person's suffering will arise. Or perhaps the thought, this is a test, or the thought that this is a form of God in front of me and I'm not to get disturbed or distracted. So the thoughts will arise according to the nature of this mind. But that can all be changed. And so he addresses the actions first, because if you're to change it, if you're to change your thoughts, first you have to change your actions. And you have to change your words. Is it so? Yeah. You'll have to change what you say. By the way, the most powerful thing that you can say in order to change your thoughts is mantra. Did you notice after chanting kirtan the state of mind? It's quite clear, isn't it? Yeah. Also, acting in a controlled manner, such as with asanas, or such as breathing properly and into the base of the lungs. These are physical practices, actions, that will help bring clarity of mind, will help cultivate sattva in the mind. And in a state of sattva in the mind, then the thing that happens doesn't bring anger. There's more clarity remaining, so that instead of going into a reactive place, we're able to act from a place of wisdom or being in touch with the intuition. And by the way, it's entirely possible that the proper thing to do when someone is losing it is to yell, but not as a reaction, as an action born of wisdom. And act in order to help to serve, to help to benefit. Sometimes we have to be yelled at in order to come out of the state that we're in. Is that true, Shivadas?
Totally true.
But if it's a reaction, then reactions just spiral, right? Mm-hmm. So what Lord Krishna is really speaking to is intentional thought. Yes? And the whole thing about action and speech is in order to bring intentional thought. If your thoughts are all intentional, then your speech will also be intentional, right? You won't say anything untoward, because there won't be a feeling of being put upon that will bring that word that you wish you would have taken back, that you wish you would have never spoken. And the action that you wish you wouldn't have engaged in wouldn't happen if your thoughts were clear, right? So if your thoughts are clear, and if there's sattva and faith in that which is higher, it's told to us that everything that happens here, everything that happens to us, nothing comes from malice. It's all coming from one place, one doer. It's all for our own benefit. It's either a teaching, an opportunity to serve, or a lesson. And it's all intentional, nothing accidental. It said this. Ultimately, in all the traditions, this will be said. No accidents here. With clarity of mind, there's not the distraction, not the disturbance, and therefore not the reaction. There is simply appropriate action in the mind, first in thought. This is what's happening now. This is what I'm to do. Or even the intuition, which will guide silently. And so it's interesting. And here we come back to these same three slokas together as well. It's interesting. Why doesn't he start with thought first? Right? Because the thoughts are the most important.
But it's also the hardest to control.
It's also the hardest to control. And the way to control it requires proper action and proper speech.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if you if you learn to engage in proper action and proper speech, then the thoughts by themselves will purify.
Yeah.
And then it's possible to recognize the thoughts themselves. The great Peace Pilgrim. Peace Pilgrim is a saint that we're very, very close with. She was the inspiration for the pilgrimage walk that I engaged in for 2.5 years. She says this. She says, if you knew the power of your thoughts, you would never think a negative thought again. It's possible that people won't hear what you say. It's possible that they won't see what you do. But it's not possible not to have an effect with the thoughts that you engage in. Because we're all in the same thought pool. And when we engage in a hateful thought, we experience it. It touches us. It scars us. When we cultivate it, when we imbibe in it, and you see, the person takes on the nature of those thoughts, right? You had an up-close experience with that, so you got to see it. And then you get to see it within yourself as well, but now you can do something about it. Then you couldn't. You wanted to do something about it then, right? But now you can, because now you're looking at your own thoughts and seeing, and how to do about it, it starts with right action. Controlled actions, beneficial actions. Not hurtful actions. So ahimsa, for one, is here for this reason. And then speech. Pleasant, not unpleasant. Not sickeningly sweet, not meaningless. That doesn't need to be spoken. Just a few words here and there. Encouragement. Yes, you can do it.
Ahimsa is speech also. Yeah.
Ahimsa is also in speech, yeah. And all of these will carry through to the thoughts. To speech and to the thoughts. Just one more shloka. We'll read one new one. And just this threefold austerity, referring to the action, speech, and thought, practiced by steadfast persons. Steadfast means just resolved, not. It doesn't mean. Steadfast means you're going to stick with it, a thing. When we're learning, which we all are, we were talking about yesterday, we're all learning something here. And when we're learning, as part of the learning process, we will fail all the time, but it's not really failure if we recognize we're learning, right? It's part of the learning process, isn't it? It's a requirement for the learning process. It's a beautiful part of the learning process. On the harmonium, I wanted to learn harmonium. I'm not good at it, but I wanted to learn it well enough to be able to chant in satsang and have the kirtan accompany, have the harmonium accompany. So I devoted the time to do, and I was absolutely terrible at the beginning of it. You couldn't be in the same room with me without running away. And I was in the same place. It was very hard for me to be in the same room as myself. I wanted to run away. And so I just stuck with it. Sticking with it, stick-to-itiveness, steadfast. Steadfast. So you have a goal and you say, I know this is going to take time, but it'll take forever if I don't do the right things in order to learn it. So in this way, it'll take time to cultivate beneficial thoughts. It'll take time to clear out this anger or residual anger in the mind. It'll take time, but I'm going to stick with it, right? And I'm going to come to the clearing. I'm going to come to that clear place where the anger reaction no longer comes. And with the Lord's help, dear Lord, please help me. I know that I shall succeed. And so I will stick with it, whatever it takes. Even under penalty of death, I'll stick with it. That's completely steadfast, right? It doesn't make any difference how long it takes, by the way. It's just the practice that's important. It was never about the fruit anyway. You are what you seek. Right? And so what do we practice? This life is practice. It's just constant practice. Practice is a funny word. It's like we're preparing for life or something, but the practice is the life. They're not different. Whatever we practice forms the life. So steadfast with the utmost faith, which we've really just discussed, knowing that I have the ability to choose, and whatever I choose, by calling forth the divine support, and by just sticking with it, I'll be successful. Desiring no reward. They call that practice of austerity, sattvic. And so tomorrow morning we'll pick up on the tamasic and rajasic austerities and what those are. Comments or questions?
I think I've found with austerity of speech, sometimes there can be something that comes that I don't catch.
Yes.
And it can seem that it would be, or it might be something cultural, or it might be something where it seems like I'm creating a relatedness to someone.
Yes.
But then upon reflection, I found out that it really wasn't beneficial because it was sort of maybe distracting them, right, or getting them to think about some other place or object, or creating a personality, or talking about them or talking about me. And
right.
So I found most, like you're saying, it took me a long time because I love to talk. Like you were saying in the beginning, most talking does do all of these types of things.
And there was a nervousness underlying it, wanting to please, a desire to please.
Yeah.
And so this false humor that would come, and then very uncomfortable about whether they'll laugh and appreciate the joke, right? That whole, yeah. Oh. Indeed. But you've made very good progress in terms of rooting that out and come to a much warmer, more genuine presence. Now, still the thoughts, and although again you're doing the work, so still the thoughts, And we get to where when we get to the speech, and it's like this: we start with our action, and then the speech, and then the thoughts, and they're all affecting each other anyway. But it's so hard to restrain the speech. It's easier to restrain the actions for a time. But the way we restrain the action tends to be something that doesn't last very long, because eventually it has to explode. If we don't get to the thoughts and what's underlying the desire to speak this word and then to act this way, the geyser it just explodes at some point. So we have to get deeper in it. But that urge to speak it, although at some point you'll say, I can't say that. Inside, I can't say that. Like to yourself, I can't say that. Come on. We know how this goes. I can't say that. And then at some point, no, I can't think that. No, you go away. Leave me alone. No. I'm not putting the time of day into you. I am not putting any energy into you whatsoever. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. And then it's gone. Oh. Anything, dear? Anything to share? A question?
It's practice.
It's practice. That's the word. It's practice. It's practice. And when you know that it's practice, that changes it, doesn't it? Then that brings light into life, doesn't it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Trying not to be frustrated.
Yeah.
It's always practice.
And that's a practice. And when you know your tools that you have to bring in with you into the practice, breath, mantra, awareness of that which is higher, either in a very esoteric way or in a practical way, like one of the saints picking up a book for inspiration, one of the life stories or teachings of like this. Satsanga, the ability to put something on YouTube. So many satsangs on YouTube. So many Swami, so many wonderful teachers and teachings. I can turn that on, and that will help bring me back into the place of potential, goodness, and once again.
Well, so I feel like I can withdraw from action, from speech. This comes easily to me. But then I wonder, am I avoiding or missing out an opportunity on right action or right speech?
That's very good, and it has to start with right thought. It has to start with beneficial thought. We were discussing it a little bit. It doesn't. There's a concept in Raja Yoga of Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which is defined as yoga. Yoga is Chitta Vritti Nirodha, the stoppage of the thoughts. Interestingly enough, it's not actually the stoppage of the thoughts, because thoughts will continue ad infinitum. But thoughts are like the clouds. They're infinite. They're always appearing. It's really the stoppage of the identification with the thoughts. It's the stoppage of the taking one's identity from the thoughts. See, the clouds are clouds. They're not I. But there's a process to get there, and part of the process is actually cultivating beneficial thought, cultivating and intentionally bringing it. And that is a great practice, and it's actually a karma yoga practice as well. Actually bringing beneficial thoughts. So as an action, and it is an action. It is an action. And the bringing beneficial thoughts, loving thoughts, kindness, may you be free, may you be happy, may you be successful. May all be free, may all be successful. These are mantras as well, but even bringing them in English. Talking with God in the mind. Seeking guidance inside in communication. This communication with the light, and the light is the one reality. It's the funniest thing. Something in here will say, well, he won't answer, she won't answer. Like, no, who's speaking now? Oh yeah, that's right. No, we need to ask questions. And because the answer is always in the question. When we try to live our life, and many of us have got stuck like this, where we say, well, I'm on my own anyway. I'm not even going to ask any questions. I'm just going to figure it out myself. I'm supposed to know anyway. And that's bumbling. My partner, many years ago, I had been married, and my wife would get so upset with me because I would drive along and I would refuse to ask questions. I would drive, and this was before GPS. We had maps back then. I would drive, say, we're going to such and such a place, and she would say, do you know where it is? Yeah, I know. And I would, like, just leave me alone and I'm fine. I'm fine. And then we'd get on the road driving, and I would absolutely refuse to ask. And she would have to scream at me, "Stop and ask!" And I would think, why? What's the big deal? So there was actually a refusal to ask questions. And what is that born of? It's born of a very strong ego in a particular way, which is this independence, self-independence, not needing anyone because everyone disappoints you. Because no one does as you want them to do. This is all the mind stuff we're dealing with. It's this craziness. And we all have our own individual craziness. And every one of these, everyone's crazy. Everyone expects people to prostrate to them in some way, shape, or form. So everyone's crazy, but our crazinesses are all different. We have communal craziness, which we see in a global scale, these wars and all of this. And then we have individual craziness. And of course, the communal craziness is born of the individual craziness. So, but in my crazy world, then since people were always disappointing me, then I decided, well, then I will do it without them. And I will become self-sufficient and I will do it myself. So very rajasic. And now I refuse to ask. And I absolutely refuse to ask. No, I don't need to ask. I'll figure it out. It's okay. And in some way I could say I learned something, but ultimately all I really learned is what an idiot I am.
Funny.
I've missed all of life. Yes, dear?
Oh, I was just thinking, you don't want to ask because people let you down, but in the same circumstance, you're letting yourself down, and we do that all the time.
Of course it's that way, but we all are adopting limited perspectives. We only see it our way. Until finally, through grace, some light comes and we say, what an idiot I am. And so it was very hard to learn to talk to God. But when I did realize that God is all there is, I kind of realized that that's all I've been talking to all along. And it goes down much better if I realize that I'm talking to God when I talk to you. Or you. I'm saying inside, you, my dear Lord. So, and having an organized communication with God about every little thing, something happens. What should I know? What should I do? And the answers just, they flow. Just by asking the question, how you hear what to do, just by asking the question. So I know we were discussing this last night because it's a particular point that you're supposed to receive. And what I can share from here, this communication becomes communion. And this is all sattvic thought. This is all sattvic thought. And it is an austerity because I had to make myself talk to God. Inside and outside. I had to make myself do it. Yes? It didn't come naturally. The funny thing is realizing, but that's all I've ever been talking to. And then laughing at myself and again saying, what an idiot you are. But then intentionally bringing intention into it. And it's joyful. And it's a joyful practice. I would, on pilgrimage, I'll just one little story. So I had resolved, and there's no doubt that the inspiration from this came from on high, but I had resolved to think a beneficial thought for every single person I came in contact with. Think it to them. The practice was this, because I realized in walking pilgrimage, most people that I would meet while they were driving their cars. And they would be driving towards me because I resolved that I'm supposed to walk facing traffic, not with traffic. Why? Because I'm doing my best to do what I'm asked to do, which is to lead a beneficial life. And leading a beneficial life from this perspective means beneficial actions, beneficial speech, and beneficial thought. And so I ask what's beneficial, and I realize to uplift. So, dear Lord, I wish to act and speak and think in a way that's uplifting. So, okay, then you walk towards people instead of away from them, and you engage with them in a way, even when they're in their cars, that has the potential to uplift, to provide upliftment. So how to do that? You wave to them. But how do I wave to them in order to uplift? You pay attention to them and wave appropriately in a way that doesn't cause excitement, doesn't disturb them, doesn't distract them, but helps them to feel loved. Okay. What do I say? Well, speech only comes into play when they stop and ask a question. What do I think? I think a beneficial thought for each of them. May you know love. May you be free. And I could speak hello, but in a way just mouthing it. So that, you see, if you're coming towards me and hello, you'll see that, right? And will you feel some uplift from it? Yeah. And so this was the resolution. This was the resolve that was made inside. And to think a beneficial thought, may you be free, may you know the Lord, something like this. And it would be for each person. And I would look at each individual person. But engaging in it as a practice was difficult because judgments would come in. Someone might flip me the finger, and that's a test. That's a test. And a beneficial thought wouldn't want to come forward, and I'd say, God, please help. And it would come. I was walking past one day in Brawley, California, really just starting to walk into the desert. There are the feedlots. Thank you, Lord. I didn't remember the word, but it was just given. So the feedlots, where the cattle are tortured in preparation for killing them. And the dairies, where the cattle are tortured in preparation for putting these machines on them and sucking them dry. And so as I'm walking past them, these very judgmental thoughts were coming. And I said, somewhere inside, I don't want to think beneficial thoughts to these people. Dear Lord, please help. So like this, it just became a constant inner dialogue. And at some point, everything that would happen is a check-in. What should I say? What should I do? And then, even without asking it just started to come naturally. There was a flow. So communication to communion. When we're wanting to be free of thoughts, but being free of thoughts means being free of the expectation of reward or the expectation of pain, right? That when you're free of that, then you're free of thought. Right. Because then thought is a tool. It's just an offering. And what kind of thought do I wish to offer? It's not my thought, but still I can offer thought. Right? I can use a screwdriver even if it's not my screwdriver. Yes? Yeah. So I can utilize a thought even if it's not my thought. And it's God's thought. But I can still utilize it. And understanding that, I would only wish to be in accordance with the guidance here on austerity of thought. I would only wish to think sweet thoughts. Prasada. Mana prasada. I would wish for the thoughts only to be a sweet offering. Right? No matter what someone's going through, I wouldn't want to react to that in the thoughts. Not at all. I wouldn't wish to be thrown in any way. If they were screaming and they had a knife or a gun in their hand, I would not wish to think a negative thought towards them. I would not wish to judge them in any way, shape, or form. I would wish to have only sweetness to offer. Now, what I say might be different, but what I say then would be an action, not a reaction. Right? And you can do it, dear. Because of who you are. You have connections in high places. Okay, we should close with final prayer and arati. We'll have the short final prayer and arati. Page 174 in the book. That mantra, Om Triambakam, we'll chant that together 3 times. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyamam Mritat Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyamam Mritat Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyamam Mritat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, let us abide in Thee forever and ever. Humble Lord Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and for all the saints and sages of all the traditions. We'll stand for arati, and you can follow it. It's 212, page 212.